Ethan Vale stepped off his small cargo ship onto the metal floors of Nexus Prime Station. The place smelled like oil and unwashed bodies. Lights flickered above his head as he walked through the busy corridors. People from dozens of different worlds pushed past him. Some had blue skin, others had extra arms, and a few had scales instead of hair. This was the kind of place where nobody asked questions and everybody minded their own business. He was here to deliver a package and collect his payment. Nothing special about it. Ethan had been running cargo for 3 years now since he bought his ship with money he saved working in the shipyards. Being an elf meant he had better hearing and faster reflexes than most humans, which made him a good pilot. It also meant some people looked at him funny, but he was used to that by now. The cantina where he was supposed to meet his contact was loud and smoky. Ethan found a table in the corner and ordered a drink. The liquid was green and tasted terrible, but it was cheap. He checked his watch and settled in to wait. His contact was late, which was not unusual in this part of space. That was when he heard the conversation at the table behind him. 2 men were talking in low voices, but Ethan's elf ears picked up every word. They were discussing something called a special auction happening later that night. The words they used made his stomach turn cold. They were talking about selling people. Ethan tried to ignore what he heard. This was not his problem. He was just here to do a job and leave. But the men kept talking about the merchandise they had collected. 4 females from different worlds, young and healthy, worth a lot of money to the right buyers. One of them laughed about how scared they looked when they were captured. His hands gripped his glass so tight he thought it might break. Ethan had seen slavery before. It was illegal in most civilized systems, but places like Nexus Prime existed outside normal law. He had always told himself there was nothing one person could do about it. Tonight felt different. His contact finally showed up an hour later. The payment was made quickly and without problems. Ethan should have gone back to his ship and left the station. Instead, he found himself walking toward the lower levels where the auction was supposed to take place. The lower sections of Nexus Prime were darker and more dangerous. Fewer security cameras and fewer guards meant people could do things here. That would get them arrested elsewhere. Ethan followed maintenance corridors and service tunnels, using his natural stealth to avoid being seen. His heart was beating fast, but he kept moving forward. He found the auction site in an old cargo bay that had been converted into a makeshift arena. Guards with heavy weapons stood at every entrance. Inside, wealthy beings from across the galaxy sat in comfortable chairs while a man on stage described the merchandise. Ethan climbed into an air vent above the room and looked down through a grate. 4 metal cages sat on the stage. In each cage was a young woman from a different world. The first had blue skin and silver hair. Her eyes burned with anger even though her hands were chained. The second looked almost human except for the green tint to her skin and the way small flowers seemed to grow from her hair. The third was definitely human, but had metal parts attached to her arms and the side of her head. The fourth had pale white skin and what looked like folded wings on her back. The man on stage was explaining their special abilities. The blue-skinned one was telepathic and trained as a warrior. The green one could make plants grow and heal injuries. The human with metal parts was a computer expert who could hack any system. The winged one could see glimpses of the future. All of them looked scared and angry and hopeless. Ethan had heard enough. He crawled through the air vents until he found the station's main power junction. His hands shook as he pulled out tools from his belt. He was about to do something that would probably get him killed, but he could not watch 4 innocent beings get sold like property. The power grid on Nexus Prime was old and poorly maintained. Ethan knew enough about electronics to cause problems. He connected wires that should not be connected and disconnected others that kept systems stable. Warning lights started flashing. Then the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a few seconds later, but those seconds were enough. Ethan dropped down from the ceiling into the auction room. Guards were shouting and trying to figure out what happened. In the confusion, he ran to the cages and started breaking the locks with a tool from his belt. The blue-skinned woman looked at him with surprise. Her chains fell away, and she rubbed her wrists. Ethan moved to the next cage while she freed the others. The guards finally figured out what was happening and started shooting. Energy blasts lit up the dark room as Ethan and the 4 women ran toward an emergency exit. The woman with metal parts grabbed a guard's weapon and started shooting back. The blue-skinned one picked up another gun and showed she knew how to use it. The green one helped the winged woman who seemed weak and shaky. They fought their way through corridors while alarms rang throughout the station. Ethan led them through maintenance tunnels toward his ship. He knew Nexus Prime better than most people because he had been here many times. The tunnels were narrow and dark, but they were also empty. Behind them, he could hear guards searching and shouting orders. His ship was docked in Bay 7. They ran across the loading area while energy blasts hit the walls around them. Ethan's fingers flew over the controls as he started the engines. The four women strapped themselves into passenger seats without being told. The ship lifted off just as more guards arrived at the docking bay. Space around Nexus Prime was busy with traffic, which helped them blend in. Ethan set course for empty space while checking his instruments. His ship had taken some damage during the escape, but nothing that would stop them from getting away. He looked back at his passengers and realized he had no idea what to do next. The blue-skinned woman was staring at him with an expression he could not read. The others were looking around the ship like they had never seen anything like it. None of them had said a word since the rescue. Ethan wondered if any of them even spoke the same language he did. His ship jumped to hyperspace and left Nexus Prime behind. In the cargo hold, he had supplies for maybe a week. 4 extra people would make that stretch pretty thin. He also had no idea where to take them or how to keep them safe. What he did know was that he had just made enemies of some very dangerous people. The Crimson Syndicate did not forget when someone cost them money. The silence in Ethan's ship lasted for 2 hours. He kept checking the navigation computer and trying not to look back at his passengers. Finally, the blue-skinned woman spoke. Her voice was clear and strong, though she had an accent he did not recognize. "You saved us," she said. "Why?" Ethan turned around in his pilot seat. All 4 women were watching him now. The one with green skin had made the small flowers in her hair bloom brighter. The human with metal parts was studying his ship's controls with interest. The winged woman had her eyes closed like she was sleeping, but he could tell she was listening. Because what they were doing was wrong, Ethan said. It seemed like an obvious answer to him. The blue woman tilted her head. "You do not know us. We are not your people. You risked your life for strangers." "That does not matter," Ethan replied. "Nobody should be sold like property." The women looked at each other. The green-skinned one spoke next. Her voice was softer and had a musical quality. "In my culture, when someone saves your life, you owe them a debt that can never be repaid. You become bound to serve them until death." "Same with my people," the blue woman said. "The soul debt is sacred. You own us now." Ethan felt uncomfortable. "I don't own anybody. I just helped you get away. You don't owe me anything." The human with metal parts laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "I was raised on a colony that followed the old ways. Life debt is real. You saved us, so we belong to you now." The winged woman finally opened her eyes. They were pale blue and seemed to see more than what was in front of her. "I saw this moment in my dreams many times. You would come for us. You would free us. But you would not understand what it means." "I understand that you're free now," Ethan said. "You can go wherever you want." "Where would we go?" the blue woman asked. "I am Maya from the Zephyrian worlds. My home is 3 months away, and my people think I am dead." "The green woman is Luna from Verdania. Her world was attacked by the same people who captured us. Amy here lost her colony to debt collectors. Rose has no home at all because her people wander the stars." Ethan looked at each of them as Maya introduced them. Luna had tears in her eyes when Maya mentioned her destroyed world. Amy's metal parts glowed softly in the dim light of the ship. Rose was staring at something only she could see. "Then we'll find you safe places to start over," Ethan said. "There are refugee centers and aid stations." "You still do not understand," Maya said. "We cannot simply leave. The life debt binds us to you. If we tried to abandon you, we would die. It is not a choice." "That's crazy," Ethan said. "I never asked for that." "It does not matter what you asked for," Rose said quietly. "It is what happened. I have seen our futures. They are all connected to yours now." Ethan turned back to his controls and tried to think. He had wanted to help them, not make them his responsibility forever, but they seemed to believe this debt thing was real. He needed to find somewhere safe to figure out what to do next. His computer found a small mining station 3 days away. It was run by independent miners who did not ask many questions. They could hide there while his ship was repaired and maybe find help for the women. During the journey, Ethan learned more about his passengers. Maya had been a warrior before her capture. She knew how to fight with weapons and her bare hands. She also had telepathic abilities that let her sense emotions and sometimes read surface thoughts. She spent hours studying Ethan, trying to understand why he had risked everything for strangers. Luna was a botanist who studied plants from different worlds. The flowers in her hair were actually living organisms that helped her stay healthy. She could make plants grow faster and heal people using special herbs. She started growing small plants in empty containers around the ship, saying they would need medicine and food for their travels. Amy was the daughter of colonists who had been enhanced with cybernetic implants to survive on their harsh world. The metal parts of her body let her interface directly with computer systems. She spent most of her time studying Ethan's ship computer and making small improvements to its efficiency. She seemed amazed that anyone would own a ship without military-grade security systems. Rose was the most mysterious. Her people were called Celestians, and they lived their entire lives traveling between stars. She had limited telepathic abilities but could sometimes see possible futures in her dreams. She meditated for hours each day and gave cryptic warnings about dangers ahead. On the second day of travel, bounty hunters found them. 3 small fighter ships dropped out of hyperspace and started shooting immediately. Ethan's ship was not built for combat, and the shield started failing quickly. "I can help," Maya said, sliding into the co-pilot seat. "Let me handle the weapons." "We don't have weapons," Ethan said while dodging another blast. Amy was suddenly standing behind him, with her hands connected to the ship's computer by thin cables. "We do now," she said. "I rerouted power from non-essential systems to create an energy pulse." "When?" Ethan asked. "Now," Rose said from her meditation spot. Amy triggered the pulse just as one of the fighter ships got close. The energy blast disabled its engines and sent it spinning away. The other 2 ships backed off but kept following. "There," Luna said, pointing to an asteroid field ahead. "Hide in there." Ethan flew into the asteroid field with the fighters close behind. His ship was smaller and more maneuverable, but the fighters had better weapons. Maya used the ship's scanners to track their enemies while Amy tried to jam their communications. "Left now," Rose said suddenly. Ethan turned left just as an energy blast passed through the space where they had been. One of the fighters had gotten ahead of them and set up an ambush. Maya found the fighter on the scanners and guided Ethan toward it. "Ram it," Maya said. "That will destroy us too," Ethan replied. "No, it won't. Trust me." Ethan aimed his ship at the fighter and accelerated. At the last second, the fighter pilot panicked and turned away. His ship hit an asteroid and exploded. The third fighter decided the bounty was not worth dying for and retreated. They found the mining station 6 hours later. It was built into a large asteroid and had room for maybe 50 people. The miners were suspicious at first, but Ethan paid them enough to keep quiet and let them dock for repairs. While Amy and Luna helped fix the ship's damaged systems, Maya pulled Ethan aside for a private conversation. "You fought well today," she said. "But you need proper training if you want to keep us alive." "I'm not a fighter," Ethan said. "I'm just a cargo pilot." "You are our protector now," Maya replied. "Whether you wanted it or not, the life debt works both ways. We serve you, but you must keep us safe. If you die, we die with you." "That's a lot of pressure," Ethan said. Maya smiled for the first time since he had met her. "Good pressure makes people stronger. I will teach you to fight. Luna will teach you about healing. Amy will teach you about technology. Rose will teach you to see dangers before they find you." "And what do I teach you?" Ethan asked. "You already have," Maya said. "You showed us that some people help others just because it is right. We had forgotten that such people existed." That night, while the others slept, Ethan sat in his pilot's seat and stared out at the stars. His simple life as a cargo pilot was over. He had 4 women who believed they belonged to him now, bounty hunters trying to kill them, and no idea what to do next. But when he looked back at Luna growing medicine plants and Amy improving his ship systems and Maya cleaning weapons, and Rose meditating on their future, he realized something had changed in him too. Maybe helping people was worth the risk after all. 2 weeks later, Ethan's ship landed on Haven's Edge, a frontier world where the law was whatever people decided it should be. The planet had one main settlement built around a spaceport, with smaller mining camps scattered across the rocky landscape. It was the kind of place where people came to disappear or start over. Maya had been training Ethan every day during their journey. His reflexes were already good because he was an elf, but she taught him how to think like a fighter. Luna had been growing a garden in the ship's cargo hold, using seeds she carried with her. Amy had completely rebuilt the ship's computer systems and added security features that would make military vessels jealous. Rose spent her time in meditation, warning them about which routes to avoid and which places were safe. They needed supplies and information, so Ethan went to the local cantina, while the women stayed with the ship. The cantina was full of miners, traders, and people who worked hard jobs for little money. Ethan ordered a drink and listened to conversations around him. A woman sitting alone at the bar caught his attention. She was older than most of the customers, with gray hair and oil-stained work clothes. Her hands showed the calluses of someone who fixed machines for a living. She was drinking slowly and staring at a picture on her datapad. "You look like you lost something important," Ethan said, taking the seat next to her. The woman looked up with tired eyes. "My daughter, taken by slavers 5 years ago. I've been searching ever since, but the trail went cold long ago." "I'm sorry," Ethan said. "What's your name?" "Kate Murphy. I used to run an engineering shop here before it happened. Now I just fix whatever people bring me and save money for the next lead." Ethan studied her face. "What if I told you there might be a way to fight back against the people who took her?" Kate laughed bitterly. "One person against the syndicates? That's suicide." "Not one person," Ethan said. "A team. People who know what those monsters do and want to stop them." He told Kate about the rescue on Nexus Prime and how the 4 women had joined his crew. Kate listened without interrupting, her expression growing more interested as he talked. "You really freed 4 slaves from a Crimson Syndicate auction?" she asked. "With help," Ethan said. "And we're planning to do it again." Kate was quiet for a long moment. "My daughter would be 23 now, if she's still alive. I don't even know what she looks like anymore. Help us," Ethan said. "We need someone who knows how to fix ships and build equipment. Maybe we can't find your daughter, but we can save other people's daughters." Kate finished her drink and stood up. "Show me your ship." An hour later, Kate was crawling through the engine compartments of Ethan's ship, while Amy explained the modifications she had made. Luna offered Kate tea made from her medicinal plants. Maya demonstrated the weapons systems that Amy had installed. Rose sat quietly, but nodded when Kate looked at her, as if approving of what she saw. "This is good work," Kate said, finally. "But if you're serious about fighting slavers, you need better equipment. Armor, weapons, communication gear, and a ship that can take damage without falling apart." "We don't have money for that kind of upgrade," Ethan said. Kate smiled for the first time since he had met her. "I do. 5 years of saving every credit I earned. It was supposed to be for ransom money, but this is better. At least this way I fight back." Over the next month, Kate transformed Ethan's ship. She installed armor plating, upgraded the engines, and added weapons that could destroy fighter craft. Amy helped by designing new computer systems that could hack enemy communications. Luna grew plants that could produce medicine, food, and even materials for making equipment. Maya trained everyone in combat tactics. Rose guided their planning by warning them about future dangers. Their first real mission came when a desperate message reached Haven's Edge. A supply convoy carrying families to a new colony had been attacked by pirates. The adults were killed, but 20 children were taken to be sold as slaves. The local authorities said there was nothing they could do because the pirates had retreated to lawless space. "We have to help them," Ethan said after reading the message. "It's a trap," Rose said quietly. "I see it in my visions. The pirates expect rescue attempts. They have prepared ambushes." "Then we spring the trap first," Maya said. "We know it's coming, so we have the advantage." Amy had been tracking the pirates' communications and found their base on an abandoned mining platform. Kate designed a plan that used their ship's new capabilities. Luna prepared medicines for the children they hoped to rescue. Rose meditated on the best timing for their attack. The rescue mission went better than expected. They approached the pirate base during a shift change when half the guards were sleeping. Amy disabled their communications while Maya and Ethan fought their way to where the children were held. Kate kept their ship ready for a quick escape, while Luna prepared medical treatment for anyone who was hurt. The pirates had expected a government rescue ship with official procedures and rules of engagement. They were not ready for a small team that moved fast and hit hard. Most of them surrendered when they realized they were outmatched. The few who tried to fight were quickly defeated by Maya's combat skills and Ethan's growing confidence. 20 frightened children were brought aboard Ethan's ship. Luna's gentle manner and healing plants helped calm them down. Amy set up communication links so they could talk to relatives. Kate made sure they had food and safe places to sleep. Maya and Rose took turns standing guard while Ethan flew them to safety. News of the rescue spread quickly through the frontier worlds. Other people who had lost family members to slavers started sending messages asking for help. Some offered money, others offered information, and a few offered to join the fight. Captain Ben Torres was one of the people who contacted them. He commanded a freight ship that carried supplies to isolated colonies. His route took him through dangerous space where pirates and slavers operated freely. He had seen too many attacks and lost too many friends to stay neutral anymore. "I can't fight like you do," Ben told Ethan during their first meeting. "But I can carry your team to places that need help. I can also gather intelligence about slaver operations while I make my regular runs." Ben's ship was larger than Ethan's and had better long-range capabilities. More importantly, it looked like an ordinary cargo vessel, which made it perfect for undercover work. They formed a partnership where Ben would identify targets and provide transportation, while Ethan's team handled the actual rescues. Their next operation targeted a slave processing facility on an industrial world called Forge Prime. Intelligence from Ben's network indicated that dozens of people were being held there while buyers were found. The facility was heavily guarded, but Amy had found weaknesses in their security systems. The mission required careful timing. Maya and Ethan would infiltrate the facility while Amy disabled their alarms and communication systems. Luna would wait with medical supplies while Kate prepared their escape route. Rose would monitor for unexpected dangers using her precognitive abilities. Everything went according to plan until they were leaving the facility. A squad of security guards had been returning from patrol just as the alarms should have sounded. Since Amy had disabled the alarms, the guards walked into an ambush without knowing anything was wrong. Maya and Ethan had to fight their way out while protecting 30 freed slaves. During the firefight, Ethan was hit by an energy blast that knocked him unconscious. Maya carried him to safety while the freed slaves helped each other reach the ship. Luna's healing abilities saved his life, but he was weak for days afterward. While Ethan recovered, the 4 women took turns sitting with him and talking about their experiences. Maya told him about her home world and the warrior traditions of her people. Luna shared stories about the forests of Verdania and the plants that grew there. Amy described her colony and the technological implants that helped humans survive on harsh worlds. Rose spoke about her nomadic people and their search for meaning among the stars. "Why do you really stay with me?" Ethan asked during one of these conversations. "Is it just because of the life debt?" Maya looked at the others before answering. "At first, yes. The debt bound us to you whether we wanted it or not. But now we stay because we choose to. You showed us that fighting for others is worth the risk. You gave us purpose again." "We were all lost before you found us," Luna added. "Not just captured, but lost inside ourselves. You reminded us who we wanted to be." Amy nodded. "I spent years thinking only about survival. You taught me that. Some things are worth dying for." "And I saw this in my visions long before we met," Rose said. "You were always meant to be our leader, not because you wanted power, but because you wanted to help." When Ethan was strong enough to travel again, they received an urgent message from Ben Torres. He had discovered something that changed everything they thought they knew about the slave trade. The Crimson Syndicate was not just a criminal organization. They had connections that reached into governments and corporations across the galaxy. The corruption was deeper and more widespread than anyone had imagined. "We're not just fighting pirates and criminals anymore," Ben explained during a secure communication. We're fighting a system that treats people like property on an industrial scale. The evidence Ben Torres brought them was shocking. Financial records showed money flowing from legitimate businesses to slaver operations. Government officials were receiving payments to look the other way. Even some military units were being paid to avoid certain shipping routes where slave transports operated. Amy spent days analyzing the data on her computers. The numbers painted a picture of corruption that stretched across dozens of star systems. Maya used her telepathic abilities to verify information by reading the emotions of people they questioned. Luna's healing skills helped them treat refugees who had escaped from slave operations and could provide testimony. Rose's visions guided them to sources of information that would have been impossible to find otherwise. It's not just the Crimson Syndicate, Amy explained to the team during one of their planning meetings. They're part of a network that includes mining companies, agricultural corporations, and manufacturing guilds. Anywhere that needs cheap labor, these people provide it. Kate was maintaining their weapons while she listened. So we're not fighting criminals. We're fighting an entire economic system. A system that depends on treating people like property, Maya said angrily. The profits are too large for them to give up easily. Ethan studied the data displays that Amy had created. Red lines connected dozens of organizations across the galaxy. Some of the names were companies he had delivered cargo for in the past. Others were government agencies that were supposed to protect citizens from exactly this kind of exploitation. How do we fight something this big? He asked. The same way we've been fighting, Rose said softly. One rescue at a time, one exposed operation at a time. Eventually, the truth becomes impossible to hide. Their next target was a slave processing facility on Forge Prime that they had hit before. Intelligence suggested the facility had been rebuilt with better security and was processing twice as many victims as before. It was also serving as a training center where captured people were broken psychologically before being sold. The mission planning took 2 weeks. Amy needed time to study the new security systems. Maya had to develop tactics for fighting in an urban environment where civilians might be caught in the crossfire. Luna prepared medical supplies for treating people who had been tortured or drugged. Kate modified their ship with stealth capabilities that would help them approach undetected. Rose's visions during this period were disturbing. She saw betrayal coming from someone they trusted. She saw Ethan in danger but could not determine the source. Most troubling, she saw their mission succeeding but at a cost that would change everything. Should we call it off? Ethan asked, after Rose shared her warnings. No, Rose replied. The visions show many possible futures. The worst outcomes happen if we do nothing. At least if we act, there is hope. They approached Forge Prime using Ben's cargo ship as cover. The plan was for Ben to dock at the commercial port, while Ethan's team used a smaller shuttle to reach the processing facility. Ben would maintain communication and provide extraction if things went wrong. The facility was built into an old factory complex on the industrial side of the city. Thousands of workers lived in crowded housing nearby, which provided perfect cover for the team's approach. Amy had identified weaknesses in the perimeter security that would allow them to enter without triggering alarms. Everything went smoothly at first. They infiltrated the facility during a shift change and located the holding areas where victims were kept. Maya's telepathic abilities helped them avoid guards who were patrolling randomly. Luna's plant-based medicines neutralized security cameras without causing obvious damage. Kate's technical skills opened locked doors while Amy monitored communication channels. They found 43 people imprisoned in the facility. Most were young adults who had been captured from frontier colonies. Some showed signs of physical abuse. Others seemed to be drugged into compliance. All of them were terrified when the rescue team appeared. We're here to help, Ethan told them in a quiet voice. Follow us and stay together. We'll get you out of here. The escape route took them through maintenance tunnels under the facility. Maya led the way while Ethan and Kate helped the freed slaves who were too weak to walk quickly. Luna treated injuries as they moved. Amy monitored for pursuit using sensors she had placed throughout the facility. They were almost to the extraction point when Rose's warning came true. Security forces were waiting for them in the tunnel ahead, but these were not facility guards. They were wearing the uniforms of planetary defense forces. How did they know? Kate whispered. Amy checked her equipment for tracking signals but found nothing. Maya extended her telepathic senses and detected emotions that felt familiar. Someone in their network had betrayed them, but she could not identify who. The tunnel ahead was blocked, but Rose guided them to an alternate route she had seen in her visions. They emerged in a different part of the city, but government forces were already surrounding the area. Ethan realized they had walked into a trap that was much larger than just the slave facility. "They knew we were coming," he said to his team. "Someone told them our exact plan." Ben's voice came through their communication system with urgency. "Government ships are launching from the orbital station. They're saying you're terrorists who have attacked a legitimate rehabilitation center." The freed slaves looked confused and frightened. Some of them were starting to believe they had been rescued by criminals rather than heroes. Maya used her telepathic abilities to project calm emotions, but she could not overcome the fear created by uniformed soldiers calling them terrorists. Amy found an abandoned warehouse where they could hide while planning their next move. Her computer equipment showed news broadcasts from across the sector. The story being told was that a group of extremists had attacked a facility that helped rehabilitate criminals and prepare them for productive lives in society. "They're calling the slaves criminals," Amy said with disgust. "They're saying the facility was helping them become useful citizens." "People will believe it," Kate said grimly. "Most citizens want to think their government protects them. It's easier than believing their leaders are corrupt." Ethan looked at the freed slaves huddled in the warehouse. They were starting to doubt. Their rescuers because uniformed authorities were saying the rescue was illegal. Some were asking if they should surrender to the government forces. "We need proof," Ethan said. "Something that shows what was really happening in that facility." Amy had been recording everything with hidden cameras during the mission. The footage showed the horrible conditions and the evidence of torture and drugging, but she needed a way to broadcast it that could not be blocked or discredited. Luna had an idea. Her people had developed a method of encoding information in the genetic structure of plants. The data could be transmitted by releasing spores that would grow into new plants wherever they landed. It was nearly impossible to stop or trace. "I can encode Amy's footage into spores and release them across the planet," Luna explained. "Anyone with basic biology equipment can extract the information and see what we found." Maya added her telepathic testimony by imprinting her emotional experiences into the genetic code. People who viewed the footage would not just see what happened, they would feel the terror and pain of the victims. Rose guided them to a rooftop where Luna could release the spores into the air currents. While Luna worked on encoding the information, Maya and Ethan defended against government forces who had tracked them to the building. Kate kept their escape route clear while Amy transmitted additional evidence through encrypted channels. The spores spread across the planet within hours. By the next day, the real story was growing in gardens and parks throughout the system. People who had believed the government's version started asking questions when they saw the actual footage of what happened in the facility. But the team's troubles were far from over. Government forces had identified their ship and issued galaxy-wide arrest warrants. Ben Torres was detained for questioning about his connection to the alleged terrorists. The network of people who had been helping them went into hiding or disappeared entirely. "We're on our own now," Ethan told his team as they prepared to leave Forge Prime. "Everyone who helped us is either captured or too scared to make contact." "No," Rose said with certainty. "We're not alone. The truth is spreading faster than they can suppress it. People are starting to understand what's really happening." Amy's monitoring equipment confirmed Rose's words. Protests were starting on worlds throughout the sector. Investigative journalists were asking difficult questions about government connections to slave operations. Some military officers were refusing orders to hunt for the rescue team. But Marcus Voss, the leader of the Crimson Syndicate, was also taking action. Intelligence reports suggested he was hiring additional mercenaries and offering huge bounties for Ethan's capture. More troubling, he was convincing government leaders that the rescue team represented a threat to galactic stability. "He's turning us into the enemy," Maya observed, "making people think that fighting slavery is the same as fighting civilization." "Then we need to show them the difference," Ethan said. "We need to expose the syndicate and the corruption that protects it." Amy's computers worked for 3 weeks before finding what they were looking for. Hidden in the communication patterns of dozens of criminal organizations was a signal that pointed to one location: Obsidian Station. The massive space station served as headquarters for the Crimson Syndicate and coordination center for slave operations across the galaxy. "It's heavily defended," Amy explained as she showed the team her findings. 3 battle cruisers, a dozen escort ships, and enough mercenaries to fight a small war. But more importantly, it's where they keep their financial records and client lists. Kate studied the station's design on Amy's screens. Getting in would be almost impossible. Getting out alive would be completely impossible. Maya was examining the tactical situation with a warrior's eye. The defenses are designed to stop large attacking forces. A small team might be able to slip through, but only if they had perfect timing and incredible luck. Rose had been meditating on their options for days. Her visions showed many possible futures, most of them ending in failure and death. But there was one path that led to success, though the cost would be enormous. "There will be an auction," Rose said quietly. "The largest slave auction in syndicate history. Hundreds of victims from dozens of worlds. Government officials and corporate leaders from across the galaxy will attend. If we can disrupt it and gather evidence at the same time, we can expose the entire network." Ethan felt sick thinking about hundreds of people being sold like property while wealthy buyers watched for entertainment. But he also realized this might be their only chance to strike a decisive blow against the system. "When?" he asked. 6 weeks from now," Rose replied. "But we cannot do this alone. We need help from the people we have rescued and the allies we have made." Over the next month, secret messages went out to contacts across the galaxy. Ben Torres, who had been released from custody when the evidence of government corruption became too obvious to ignore, started organizing support from legitimate shipping companies. Former slaves who had been rescued by Ethan's team volunteered to help with the mission. Military officers who were disgusted by their government's connections to slavery provided intelligence and equipment. Kate designed a plan that required splitting their forces into 3 groups. Ben would lead a diversionary attack on Syndicate, shipping routes to draw away some of their defensive fleet. A technical team led by former slaves who had engineering skills would infiltrate the station's systems from the inside. Meanwhile, Ethan and his core team would attend the auction itself, disguised as wealthy buyers. The disguises required careful preparation. Amy used her cybernetic abilities to create false identities that would pass even sophisticated background checks. Luna grew plants that could alter their appearance when applied to skin and hair. Maya studied the mannerisms and speech patterns of the wealthy elite who typically attended such auctions. Rose guided them in choosing personas that would attract the least suspicion. Ethan found himself disguised as a mining executive from the Outer Rim who specialized in dangerous excavations that required expendable workers. Maya posed as his security chief, a role that let her carry weapons openly. Luna became his personal physician, giving her access to medical facilities where victims might be held. Amy played the part of his technical advisor, providing cover for her computer equipment. Rose was presented as his personal consultant, a mystic whose predictions helped him make profitable decisions. The journey to Obsidian Station took 2 weeks, using a luxury transport that Ben had acquired through his shipping contacts. During the trip, they received updates from their support teams. The diversionary attacks were successfully drawing away syndicate ships. The technical infiltration team had reached the station and begun planting surveillance equipment. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Obsidian Station was larger than most cities. Wealthy buyers from across the galaxy had gathered for the auction, bringing their own security forces and support staff. The station's corridors were crowded with beings who saw other sentient creatures as commodities to be bought and sold. The auction itself was held in a massive arena that could hold thousands of spectators. Ethan and his team took seats in a luxury box that provided a good view of the proceedings and multiple escape routes. Amy's equipment began recording everything while Maya memorized the faces of everyone in attendance. What they saw made them all sick with rage. Hundreds of beings from dozens of worlds were paraded across the stage like livestock. Families were separated and sold to different buyers. Children were marketed for their potential as servants or worse. The wealthy audience bid on people like they were purchasing furniture. Marcus Voss himself appeared on stage to present the most valuable lots. He was a large man with cold eyes who spoke about the merchandise with casual cruelty. He bragged about the syndicate's efficiency and promised buyers that their new property would be properly trained for obedience. "That one," Rose whispered, pointing to a group of Celestian children being offered for sale. "Those are my people's children. They were taken from a pilgrim ship 3 months ago." Maya's telepathic abilities let her sense the emotions of the victims on stage. Their terror and despair were overwhelming, but she also detected something else: hope. Somehow, word of their rescue operations had reached even these prisoners. They were looking for signs that someone might try to save them. The moment for action came when Voss announced the final lot of the evening. A group of rebel leaders who had opposed syndicate operations were being sold as an example to others who might resist. Among them was Captain Torres's daughter, the young woman Kate had been searching for. Amy triggered the signal that activated their technical team's sabotage. Throughout the station, computer systems began failing in cascade patterns. Security. Cameras went offline, communication systems crashed, and door locks began opening randomly. In the confusion, Amy started downloading the syndicate's complete financial records and client databases. Maya and Ethan moved toward the auction stage, while Luna headed for the medical facilities where drugged victims were being held. Rose remained in their box, using her abilities to coordinate their movements and warn of approaching dangers. The fighting that followed was chaotic and brutal. Station security forces were well-trained and heavily armed, but they were not prepared for the coordinated assault from multiple directions. The technical team had disabled many of their defensive systems, while the rescue team fought with the desperation of people who knew they might not survive. Maya's combat skills proved decisive in the close-quarters fighting around the auction stage. Her telepathic abilities let her anticipate enemy movements, while her warrior training made her nearly unstoppable in hand-to-hand combat. Ethan fought beside her, his elven reflexes and months of training allowing him to hold his own against professional soldiers. Luna's role was to keep the rescued victims alive and mobile. Many had been drugged or injured during their captivity. Her healing abilities and medicinal plants helped them recover enough to assist in their own escape. She also used her plant manipulation skills to create barriers and distractions that helped the rescue teams move through the station. Amy's job was the most dangerous because she had to stay connected to the station's computer systems even while fighting raged around her. Her cybernetic enhancements let her process information faster than any normal person, but they also made her a priority target for enemy forces. She downloaded terabytes of evidence while defending herself with weapons and improvised explosives. Rose coordinated everything from their luxury box, her precognitive abilities allowing her to warn team members of approaching threats and guide them toward objectives. She also used her telepathic skills to communicate with rescued victims, helping them understand that this was a real rescue attempt and not another cruel trick by their captors. The breakthrough came when Amy successfully accessed Marcus Voss's personal files. The information she found was devastating. Complete records of government payments, corporate contracts, and the identities of everyone involved in the slave trade network. More importantly, she found real-time communication logs showing how the corruption extended into the highest levels of galactic government. But their success came at a terrible cost. Kate Murphy was killed defending the technical team from a counterattack by station security. Ben Torres was severely wounded while leading the diversionary assault. Dozens of their volunteers died fighting against overwhelming odds. The escape from Obsidian Station required sacrifices that none of them wanted to make. Marcus Voss activated the station's self-destruct system rather than let his operation be completely exposed. The team had minutes to evacuate hundreds of rescued slaves while avoiding both enemy forces and the station's collapsing structure. Maya carried wounded victims who could not walk. Luna used her abilities to grow emergency oxygen supplies for people whose life support had failed. Amy transmitted the evidence she had gathered to relay stations throughout the galaxy, ensuring it could not be suppressed even if they died. Rose guided them through the chaos using visions of the paths that led to survival.